Okay, help me out. Which board docs do I go to?
Yeah. I sent a comment back. Yeah, I thought that was good.
Which board docs do I go to?
Board docs, just go to your, click on your, open your web and go to board docs.
I've got the link.
Open it up.
This is.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to begin today's briefing meeting for Tuesday, September the 11th. The time is now 2:01. Our agenda for today is we will be having a report from Executive Services regarding Policy 1.26, the Sales Tax Oversight Committee. We will also be hearing about the District Educational Facilities Work Plan and getting that update. Under Human Resources, there will be an update regarding the Human Resources Division. And operations, we will be discussing the capital project update. There is a change order memo. Hopefully everyone has read that. And then we will have public comment and board member comments. Board members and teams presenting, please note we do now have the time allotment for the presentations. Please try to be, we need to be very concise with our wording, and I have 3 fingers pointing to me as I say that. So welcome, and we're ready to begin. Executive Services, we're ready to start with you guys. And I have to pull up my piece so I can call up for Policy 1.26.
Sure, I think that
from Rob, Mr. Dodick.
I think that's me. I'll
That's
try
you.
to just use 5 minutes as is allotted. This proposed policy was presented to the board at the pre-briefing meeting on August 29th. At that meeting, we discussed a few changes that are now included in the proposed policy. The changes are in sections 3A, 4A, 4C, and 4F. I'll outline those for you. In 3A, line 43, we added the words "every effort" before "shall be made to select individuals with a background in business, finance, and so on." We, in paragraph 4A, added the language to lines 70 through 72, which state, "at a minimum, hold meetings on a quarterly basis each calendar year. The committee may, by a majority vote, decide to hold additional meetings." In 4C, line 88, we added the words "releasing the committee report to the public." And then on the following page, lines 89 through 92, we added the words "the school board shall assist the committee with distributing the committee report to the community. The committee report shall be published on the district's website, appropriate social media platforms, and other media outlets." And then finally, in 4F, we added the words to line 107, "quarterly basis each calendar year." So those were the changes. This policy, we will also add, I just wanted to tell you, language that the meetings of the committee will be videotaped when they occur for posting on the district's website. This policy will go to public hearing if the board all approves today on the evening of September 25th. So if I have your consensus to move forward, I will do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thumbs up, consensus?
I have a question.
Question?
Do we not have the capacity inside board docs to highlight anymore? Is that why the changes weren't highlighted? Don't policy changes usually come to us with highlight?
Everything was underlined, and
Because it's brand new.
I think we do. No, I think we do. I think the highlights, because I have a highlighted version, so I'm not sure how they didn't get in the board docs version, but I'll talk to Ms. Schaefer about that.
All right, thank you.
Fix it. Yep, thank you.
Okay, so that looks like we're ready to move forward. Unless
you.
there are any other suggestions. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dodick.
You're welcome.
Next, District Educational Facilities Work Plan. We've got Mr. Blurton and Ms. Lechster on board, and I did pronounce pronounce it correctly.
Yes, this time you did. Thank you. I appreciate that. We just wanted to bring the work plan to you to give you a chance to take a look at it. It is in a draft version, and I apologize. The state was supposed to open the file up in mid-August. They didn't open it up until the first part of September, so the first time my staff had a chance to even look at it was September 4th. So they've done their best to get it done. The reason that we went ahead and brought it to you in draft form is because it has to come to you and be to the state by October 1st. So the only opportunity we had to bring it to you was September 25th at the board meeting to approve it at that point. So we want to give you an opportunity to look at what we had and ask any questions. And Mr. Blurton will go into some more details for you.
This is a plan that we bring to you every year, and again, due October 1st of every year. And so the work plan is a complete and detailed capital outlay plan for our facilities, not just for the next 5 years, like our 5-year capital plan, but out 10 to even 20 years. So it's a collaborative effort between business services and our budget department and our long-range planning and with operations, because it looks at our class size, it looks at portables, it looks at everything. Within our 5-year plan, what's important to note in the work plan is it matches our 5-year capital plan. And then as we go out 10 years and 20 years, looking at enrollment projections all the way out that far, and where the district, where we're planning to be all the way out 20 years from today. So it's a lengthy document, but it is really good information and something, again, that we bring to you every year. It's an opportunity to briefly brief you about it, and it will be, actually, we did finalize it. We will probably have it finalized tomorrow, and it will be before you as a consent action item on September 25th. And then we'll get it to the DOE by the 1st. Any questions?
Bless you.
Sure.
And then if there's anything else that they want to address personally, they can always discuss it when they meet with the superintendent.
Absolutely.
Wants you to be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have theme music for the next group?
Music?
Theme music.
Theme music?
Theme music? There's a whole contingent here.
You should, yeah, well, you're the one transitioning, Mr. Blurton. You need to provide that for us the next time.
Okay.
He's yielding some of his
It's already
time to
been
them.
passed out, I believe. But take one and pass it on. I think Chris got it out to all of us.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was requested.
Yes, thank you. And
I had
forgot to
copies.
grab it, so I'm glad that you.
So good afternoon again, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You just handed me.
The same thing.
Would the team prefer that I put the documents up, or do you have them there that you can refer to? What would be your pleasure?
It's, you know what? There may be some people out there that may want to see it, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, if I can find it.
Yeah.
Dr. Halstead, has anyone ever told you that you look like you could be related to Ms. Harrell?
Poor Shelley.
No.
There is a little bit of a familial resemblance that the two of you carry. There must be something there in the DNA that you may find back there. I just noticed that today. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Shelley Halstead.
So again, Dr. Halstead and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you this afternoon to sort of update you on how far we've come. We're very excited about the fact that for the first time in a long time, our turnover number has reduced. And we anticipate that our retention number will also increase. For that, we have to wait for the survey period before we can get you that final information. But we're very, very excited about that. And the documents that we provided you, the one I just handed out was just a reminder of the targets from FY15 up through our goals established through Envision 2030. And just to remind you, for those of you that were here, back in 2015, we started with Focus Area 4. And then in 2016, we moved to Goal 3. And through all of that, we have continued to improve. Going through the Sterling Challenge process was very beneficial, having everyone yellow belt and green belt trained. And then really the HR retention wheel came out of the starting point of that, which many of you have heard, is through Dr. Halstead's Black Belt Project. And that's really what allowed us to get at what are the things that we need to do so that we can make a difference as it relates to recruitment and retention, primarily of teachers, but really of all areas in our organization. And so I just kind of wanted to go through and just highlight some of the things that we're particularly proud of, and then answer any questions. And I know, Ms. Morgan, you had provided some questions, so I'll hopefully hit those along the way, but if I leave any out, you can let me know. So one of the things is the second year of our school climate survey. And this really is an additional data point that has been established, where we also include flight risk for schools, and that is teachers that apply for like positions. Not a promotion, not moving out of the area, but that they are, in danger of leaving that particular school for the same type of position, which might indicate that there is a concern at that school. In addition to that, the overall turnover data at that particular school, as well as exit survey information, and looking at all of that information to come up with a climate report that is shared with schools, and that actually in our weekly webinar this week, I, over the weekend, sent each school individually their climate report that Shelley spent tireless hours putting together and getting all the data compiled. It also includes in there actionable information, which I had shared with you. So it talks about what are the things at that school that the administration should continue doing, what are the things they should stop doing, and what are the things they should start doing. And that really gives us, and all of this information was provided to the schools. At the webinar, we talked about that data and what it means and how you can look at whether you're doing better than the year before or how you are compared to the district average. And then at this week's principal meeting, we're going to dive into how do we make some of that actionable, and allowing them to learn from each other and figure out best practice, and so that we can improve that, across the board. Because what we know for people don't leave schools, they leave principals and assistant principals. And so, as you can see on that retention wheel, there's lots of things that get at that. And with the addition of Lynn Harrell in the area of leadership, we're very excited about, the enhanced work that we're doing. One of the things is that the crucial conversations training, and that training really gets about how do you have those conversations with those teachers and other folks at your school, those tough conversations that you need to have to go about improvement at the school site location. And currently we did day one with academic services administrators. So those folks that are going out into the schools also are going to have that skill set along with the folks that have been trained. So we'll have a common language as we talk about, we're going to have a crucial conversation. And so the people are prepared to engage in that conversation. In that same line, there's been a really good synergy between academic services and human resources relative to moving forward in a positive direction. And moving forward with making sure that we are providing the relevant feedback to principals and assistant principals relative to their performance and areas that they need to improve upon. So we're very excited about that work and continuing that forward. Another area that I'm so excited when we've talked about efficiencies and all of that moving forward is all the things that we're doing with what we'll like to call electronic workflow. It's such a broad term, but just to highlight a couple of the things, one thing I'm really, really proud of the team is that we are over 90% of all employee groups are online onboarding. That means that previously it could take up to 8 days for someone by the time the school made the offer before they could actually show up at the work site. Now, that is reduced to an average of 3 days because it's up to, all the employee has to do is go online and they do all of that required information, and they can do it at home, they can do it in the evening. They don't have to physically show up here to have that information. And so just this year alone, we've had over 800 new employees go through our online onboarding. But to piggyback on that, we're doing welcome aboard sessions. What that means is that right now this is for instructional staff only, because everything has to move slowly in steps, but we bring you back. We have processed 450 people have gone through our welcome aboard onboarding, and that's where they come down here. And we give them the information that they need and that they request. So we start out with just that, what is this district about, Vision 2020 and Vision 2030, what are we trying to accomplish, how they're part of that bigger team. In this first month, we broke them out in groups, so all middle school teachers got to talk to other middle school teachers, high school got to talk to high school, and then we split up elementary into East Zone and everyone else so that they could network and meet other folks. And then we broke them out into whether they have a professional certificate or whether they have a temporary certificate, and then gave them that relevant information. And then from there, they got to choose. We have different breakout sessions that they get to attend to get the information that's relevant to them. And so the feedback we've received on that is really, really positive, because, when you're first getting hired and doing onboarding, you're really not listening to all that stuff because you really don't know how it connects with what you're doing and who you are in the organization. But when you come back a month later and you know what questions you have, then you see that benefit. So we're really, really excited, and that is probably one of our big things relative to electronic workflow. We've also slowly worked on, I say minor because it seems like it, but it really isn't minor when you talk about the work that gets involved with it. But you saw in that document where just a lot of our processes that we have migrated to electronic workflow. And where we hope to get to in the end result, obviously, is increased efficiency. Because as some of you know, or maybe all of you, that during that, we are unique as educators because we hire the bulk of our people in a short period of time. But then you add to that we're a growing district, it kind of compounds the situation. And so the work that the team does to process all of that work in a short period of time really does require, because of some of the processes, very long work days and a lot of overtime and things like that. So what we've seen in the short term relative to electronic workflow has been amazing. So we're very, very excited about what's to come on the horizon relative to that. We also have done, as you've heard, a lot of work around compensation, around job studies. We are working our way through, job descriptions that haven't been looked at since 1971. And there's just been a lot of standardization, a lot of cleaning up, if you will, and aligning all of our contracts and all of the jobs, and to get to that long-term place where the evaluation, the job description, all of that aligns so we can really do succession planning in a way that is meaningful, and that we can really look at where are we weak, where do we need to get that bench a little stronger, so that we can make sure that we have enough people in place to continue the work that we're doing, throughout the district, and the positive work that we're trying to do. I think that as you look at our strategic plan, what you can see, because again, this is the 4th year now that we have embarked on that, is that the day-to-day work continues and it happens. But because of the training that we've had and the work through Lean Six Sigma and so forth, we have been able to enhance our work and do additional things as a result of that. Just a big shout out to all areas of the district about how that really can make a difference relative to the work that you're doing. And it really has become just part of how human resources does their business and allows us to, like I said, continue the day-to-day work, but you'll see with the FY19 priorities, you'll see the departments and how the different enhancements that they're going to tackle for FY19 and how that goes up through the department goals, through the priorities, and then all the way up to the 5 target areas, that you have highlighted here. So those are some of the things that we're really, really proud of. I guess I want to say at this point, are there any particular questions that you have or additional things that you want me to expand on relative to the material that you covered? Or Shelley, is there anything I'm missing that you want to add?
Ms. Patrica.
So, am I reading your attachment incorrectly? Because the handout that you gave us shows no data back yet from 18, but what's online for retention shows data.
For which one are you looking at specifically?
Strategic plan.
On the handout or on the strategic plan
The
document?
handout that you gave me shows no data for fiscal year 18 for target 2.
Right. We don't have that final number, the real number, until after survey 2.
So then the 58.04% that's in our backup materials online is not final?
Go ahead, say it. Go ahead.
There's 2 different numbers. The one that we won't have until survey data is the employee retention number, our raw retention. The number here, it comes from Act Point, so there's a delay in when they report it, but we use the data that we have in the formula that they use to calculate it in advance of them releasing it. So here, it says to be determined, but it actually has been pre-calculated by us and is on the other piece of information that you have. So that number is our calculation of what we think Act Point is going to say the number is.
Okay, so in English, that means?
It means that we gave a prediction based on what we think Act Point is going to say it is, but on mine, I don't put it in there until I actually get it from Act Point.
Okay. Okay, I have other questions.
Okay.
The participation percentages for new hires in these onboarding activities. Like I went to the foundation thing for new teachers, and it seemed very poorly attended. So when you say you're getting positive feedback about these things, if we only have a small percentage.
I was talking about the welcome aboard. I wasn't speaking to the social.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like for the welcome aboard, what kind of participation are we getting?
Well, it's required.
Oh,
So we're getting great participation. But we are doing surveys, I believe, and so we are collecting that data. That's how we determined what subjects we were going to have and what we were going to do, and then we sort of tweak it as we've been receiving the survey feedback.
Okay, and then what kind of, are we looking at what kind of employee is likely to stick? So when we're out there recruiting employees, have we looked at data points, like you're looking at data points for our succession plan? Are we looking at data points of people that are coming into the district who are likely to stay in the district, and are we focusing our recruitment on those people who are likely to stay here? Or are we just, whatever body we can get to fill the seat, and then we'll hope to keep them with all of these additional programs we have in place? Am I making sense?
You are. I would say the closest we are getting to that right now is we're looking, our recruitment trips are based around where we hire people that stay. But that's really about because teachers are on short supply. And so we want to get you here, and then hopefully through our efforts that we're doing, we're going to retain you because it's such a great place to be. But we are, yes, focused on where we actually go do the recruiting, but as far as like, if you just apply on your own, and are there indicators to see, they take that assessment that shows indicators, but that really is more about, do we anticipate they'll be a good teacher, not do we anticipate they'll be a good fit for the Lee County School District.
Okay. And then, you know how our net number of students for last year as an anomaly was 800, and the state is ignoring that because of Irma, it was an anomaly. Do we have a significant turnover that we can attribute to Irma?
Not that we could statistically find, we were looking at that just based on some grant money to see if we qualified for monies for recruitment based on the fact that we had a lot of people leave, and we didn't find anything statistically significant in that.
And then my last question is, I see changes in the strategic plan in terms of we're decreasing our goals, and I'm wondering, why are we decreasing our goals when, to me, this is...
Which goals are you speaking about?
Targets 1 and 2. We're decreasing our goals from what they were over our prior Vision 2020 plan. Like if you look at the goals for fiscal year 19, for targets 1 and 2, our old plan, those targets were more rigorous or harder, and we've decreased sort of our expectations in that regard.
Right, just to be more realistic. I mean, we're, you know, and that's the short answer, to be more realistic with the trends and what we've been able to accomplish.
Just, yeah. And a tag on to that too, just because you make something a goal doesn't mean your desire is to go beyond that goal.
No, and the other thing too is we keep an eye on the ACT Point KPIs, because what changes in the industry also affects what we feel we're going to put our targets at. So that has a bearing on when I say the word realistic, we look at across the country and what do the ACT Point KPIs say.
Anyone? Ms. Fisher?
So I think Mrs. Morgan was first.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
So I just have one question, and that regarding retention. Do we have data that shows the retention of people who come to us from other states as opposed to people who come from other districts or second careers? I mean, do we retain
categories?
Do we retain more of a higher percentage of one or the other?
We have, in terms of people that we've recruited, we have that information for if they were out of state or from another area in Florida or local. And so we've started to look at that. And then in terms of career changers, we do look at temporary certificates, which aren't entirely career changers, but the majority of those are career changers, or at least they don't have the education degree. So we look at the temporary certificates and the professional retention of professional certificated teachers separately, so we can see from before, actually, the temporary certificated teachers are at risk in terms of not being retained. And so some of the programs that Dr. Pruitt referred to are addressing those needs specifically.
Okay, so then is there any indication that people who come to us from more of a distance don't stay as long as people who are more local?
That's something we've collected the data, but the next step is to review it.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you.
Hear you. That's right.
Morgan.
Yeah. So, first of all, I thought it was an awesome report. I mean, a lot of good information in there. Things that excited me were the entire technology section and everything you're doing there, the total compensation, professional development enhancements, training for mentors. I thought it was a terrific way to get me, anyway, to understand where you are as a department and then where you're trying to go. Some of my questions were, what is a level 2 guest teacher?
So in an effort to help those folks that are deemed to be good teachers but are struggling to pass the test, that allows them to still get teacher pay as we work with them to pass the test.
Oh, so that's your workaround for, okay, all right, great. You said that.
Well, I was just going to say one of the reasons why we have, as a part of our legislative platform, is, to try to extend that general knowledge test out to equate to the professional or the temporary certificate.
I think you had also asked about professional development into human resources, and I didn't address that. You said you were asked that question.
Because I didn't see Dr. Creel here, and I figured I'd just wait. But if you want to go ahead and answer that
Sure.
question.
Well, one of the things that was identified through the Black Belt Project was an indication that the professional development wasn't supportive enough, wasn't assisting folks in being successful in teaching. And the other thing that we heard a lot about is professional development extends beyond teachers, and that there are other folks that need professional development. And so, for example, one of the things we've done lots of additional training with building supervisors, food service managers. We're rolling out a customer service training for central office staff. We're doing secretary to the principal training. And so just to put it into numbers, the change in our turnover for this year for teachers represents anywhere from 100 to 120 teachers that we did not have to hire this year because we retained them over the years before. So, and we believe a lot of that is because of the individualized attention that some of these folks are receiving, which is allowing them to be more successful. And again, that's based on information through the Black Belt when we looked at why are people leaving.
Thank you, because I know that Dr. Atkins explained it to me at the time, but there's some pushback on the curriculum advisory because there are people, there are academics in there who are struggling with that.
Well, and I will say to you that honestly, it's actually better because now, in addition to, there's still professional development that goes on from those curriculum folks. That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
So now what you've done is you've added additional support, and our support is focused on those new teachers and those struggling teachers. But they're still getting that professional. It's actually, they're getting more than they got before.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned that you did 360-degree evaluations of the Title I
Yes.
principals. What did you find?
So it was a good pilot, and I think it gave us some great experience on that process. Okay. It gave us great experience on working with an outside vendor to help with that process. I would say that the challenges are a couple things. One is expense, and because even with this pilot, it really only allowed us, while we had a great response rate from the people who participated, giving feedback for the principals, it still was a small number. And even though we had parents, community members, direct reports, supervisors, it still was a small number. And so if we really want to make this viable, we need to increase that, which increases the cost. But probably more than that is, and then what? In other words, if we don't have a support structure in place to do something with the information, and we're just not there yet, I think we will be, but then again, the cost obviously would have to be worked out. But to do that and then not do anything with the information is just not. So it hasn't gone away. It isn't. It's still there. That we would. That is, in my opinion, a critical piece that we can get to, where everyone is able to, administratively can have that 360 feedback.
Great. Well, thank you for at least piloting it. I think that's been great. So those are my questions.
Pam, I've got two more.
Okay, Ms. Patrica.
So I still don't feel like I have any context at all for these retention rates.
Okay.
We talked about that during the Gibson report, and I'm looking at it now wondering, are these retention rates going to put us in the ballpark of being a world-class school district? Like, to me, these rates exist in a vacuum. How do we compare to other districts?
These actually come from Act Point KPI, which, what we're, where we're shooting towards, and I don't know, hold on just a second here and we'll.
So our fiscal year 16, that's not an actual result for Lee County? That's an ACT Point KPI?
No, I'm sorry. When we set our targets is what I'm talking
I
about.
know the targets come.
So the ACT Point, I've got the median here. So for example, if you look in the strategic plan on KPIs and outcomes, the median ACT Point is 58.04.
Okay.
So,
And they're measuring what we're measuring in terms
yes,
of retention?
apples to apples, yep.
Okay, so why can we come up with that so easily and Gibson couldn't? Remember we asked this question of Gibson and they were like, well, there's no way for us to compare, right?
Yeah, I can't answer that question for Gibson.
All right, and then the other question I have, or it's not a question as much as it is an observation, it feels to me like we're addressing symptoms and not the problem. The problem is the working conditions of teachers in the state of Florida.
Right.
And this became very clear to me when I spoke with Vicki. Please help me with her last name.
Sites.
She was fantastic. She helped me understand DROP, and the number of 50 to 53-year-old teachers who come into her office and are just dying to get out of the profession is concerning to me. And unless and until we improve the conditions of teachers, the working conditions of teachers, we will continue to struggle to get them and retain them.
Well, I'm going to push back on that a little bit, in that I think a lot of what we do is to address the working conditions of teachers, and here's why I feel that way. One is because the work that we're doing with principals to help them to discern, let me take what the state is saying and what we have to do versus, what really needs to happen, and finding that gray area, if you will, just in how you schedule students and teachers, so I would say in that respect, we definitely, because that's all that we're coming at is comments and feedback from teachers in our district. And a lot of that work that we're doing relative to professional development, because sometimes the working conditions is really, I don't have the skill set to deal with the students that are in my classroom. And so to come around and provide that support does go at working conditions. I would also say that through labor management and the work that we do there, we really do try to get at those particular instances. I also think that when you look at the climate reports, I think that has been, and this has only been a couple days since they've gotten year 2 information, has been pretty eye-opening.
Well, just a couple other things to add to that I think we're doing as a district to address working condition, but also what gets specific to some of these retention and attrition numbers. So one of the things, if you're looking at what we're doing with Florida Gulf Coast University, the Innovation School, the whole point of that is to better prepare teachers for the classroom and leaders to support those teachers in the classroom. I mean, some of you have been on the board, have heard me quote Levine, Arturo Levine, again and again and again. And that really focuses on educational institutions across the United States who are ill-equipped in terms of how they support teachers and prepare them for the rigors of the profession. So we're working in collaboration with Florida Gulf Coast University to really reverse that trend so that our teachers that come to us from that university are better prepared in the terms of classroom management. They will be prepared, they've already taken the certification exams. They will be prepared to work with a diverse group of students because that innovation school is going to reflect I think the school district of Lee County as a whole. In addition, the work that they have done and continue to do with the career ladder, part of that is about professional development that is required to get to those next levels. So that, again, is in support of, I think, improving their preparation, because one of the worst things for a teacher is if you are not prepared for the rigors of the classroom instructionally, in terms of classroom management, then you're not, it's one of the worst jobs in the world if you cannot handle your classroom. It's one of the best jobs in the world if you can, and you have the instructional strategies that engage students, which is a big part of the secret to it. So, and then the other part with career ladders and preparing our principals and our leaders to support teachers in their career growth. I think crucial conversations, I wanted to jump in at some point and give a plug for that. I took the class myself. Angela and Lynn do an outstanding job in my opinion, but that is going to, what that will do for our principals is will, I think, prepare them to have better conversations with teachers about areas where they need growth. And then if we can connect that to what Human Resources is doing in professional development, I think we can certainly improve that teacher's efficacy. And if you can improve teacher efficacy, you can improve the retention rate in the classroom. So all these things go hand in hand. So I think, are we where we want to be? No. But I think if you go through the strategic plan and their accomplishments to this point, you find that they're certainly a long way down the pathway from where they began.
I think you guys took my comment the wrong way. I'm not saying we in the district are putting Band-Aids on. I'm saying we're operating within a statutory framework that makes teacher working conditions poor, and we are doing the best we can do to support them for sure. But when you get meager increases in your budget like we do this year and last year, and when you have a state that's pushing to arm employees, despite the fact that employees, teachers included, have said, no, please don't do that. You know, it seems to be adding up every year. So don't take that to mean we're putting Band-Aids on.
I'll give you another example that I think even, one of the things I really believe that we are best equipped to develop compensation plans for our employees locally. And so one of the things, we had an executive session today. So one of the things that hamstrings local efforts are statutory requirements in terms of how we compensate employees. We're sitting there struggling around with trying to meet statutory requirements that get in the way of doing what we think is in the best interest of our employees that will retain and to retain employees to this district and to this state, quite frankly. So I agree with you. It does make it more difficult.
Do you understand that it wasn't targeted at? Okay.
But it still gave us an opportunity to highlight some of those things. I'm glad
no doubt.
To have the opportunity.
Ms. Morgan.
Crucial conversations. Maybe you mentioned this, and it went right over my head. Who's having the crucial conversations with principals and APs? And
all of academic services and all of HR leadership have had the training.
Okay, so the expectation is that principals and APs, department heads, et cetera, people with management responsibility, have evaluations that are consistent with expectations for their performance, and that we can assume that in a file there will be a relationship between the evaluation, the conversation, et cetera, because that's been one of my
Yes, and one of the things that, as a result of crucial conversations and other work, is that now we will be, there'll be a form that will document the crucial conversation, much like a teacher might receive a conference summary. Then there will be performance plans that will be put in place for those principals that need some documentation and assistance beyond a crucial conversation.
Ms. Fisher, you had a comment?
No, I do not.
Okay, I want to make sure, because I do have a comment, but I want to wait and let everyone else go first. Anyone else? Good. Okay. Does that, for our directors, executive directors, and others, do you work with, are they also,
Many of our central office staff administrators have already taken the training, and we have added an additional. We keep adding. It's a lot of Lynn and I's time, so we're having to spread it out. But the expectation is that we provide enough training opportunities so that every assistant principal, principal, and central office administrator will have the training.
And will there also be action plans for some of the people that are in head and service and more directorship
Yes.
opportunities and so on?
Yes.
For areas that they need, so they get feedback on how they can improve and move
Yes,
forward?
those same forms and documents that I talked about for principals are going to be available to executive directors and directors to use with administrative staff.
Okay, thank you. I think that's an important component to let people know as well. Because this goes to something I want to say. I want to commend all of our district staff that are on salary, because you are working definitely beyond expectations. You are not working contract hours. You are going above and beyond and not request, and you are doing your job because you believe when I have the salary, I need to make sure I get the job done. And I just really want to thank you, because I really do believe that for the first time we are finally seeing this really occur in more and more departments and sections here in the district office. So that's a commendation to our superintendent, who also works above and beyond, because you follow the leader. And so for all of you, with your leadership and the effort you put in, it makes a big difference in the mind of the rest of the staff here. So I want to commend you for that. And I also praise you for continuing to go through that tedious task of reviewing job descriptions that have not been addressed. Because since I remember when you came on and when you started looking at that, and it's been a process that you've been very diligent about making sure all of those components. So kudos to you and staff for staying on top of that for us. And so I want to thank you and give out some praise to all of our staff. We are not who we were 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I just want to make sure that I acknowledge not only Dr. Halstead, but you can see HR leadership back there, and this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the outstanding team that I get to work with each and every day, and the things that we've been able to accomplish. And like I said, you know, saying that there was 100 teachers or so that I did not have to hire this year because we retained them, I think is a huge, you know, testament to the work that we're doing.
So thank you to all of you for all that you do. And that's all I wanted to say. Anything else?
No, because I'm over my time and I don't want to get in trouble.
That's okay. You got 5 minutes.
That was my fault.
You got 5 minutes so we're fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Mora coming up to go review, and he is also accompanied by, it is not Scott Rickenbacker. This is not Scott. My goodness gracious. It has a whole new look. Mr. Estes, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
I think we're all fine.
Good afternoon, board members. Dr. Atkins. Hope you're having a great afternoon. And yes, this is not Scott Rickenbacker sitting next to my right. This is Jeff Estes, and he's going to join me today in presenting the update to Bonita Springs High School. We're bringing that project to completion, and the turnover to the principal is a very significant event. So before we jump in, I just want to share a little bit of facilities trivia with you. Since the operations team is sitting in an SREF training this afternoon. Any guesses to how many candles I would need to light 1 foot above a student's desk to meet the minimum design standards?
What? How many what?
Candles.
One more time.
How many candles would I have to light 1 foot above a student's desk to meet the minimum design standards?
Doesn't it depend on the size of the candle?
Well, it would be 0 because the fire code wouldn't permit us to light the candle. Wasn't a trick question, though.
Why are candles there in the first place?
In actuality, it's 40-foot candles, because they measure illumination, and foot candles. So I shared that with you because the challenge is for the district is to achieve that minimum standard in the most efficient way possible. So does that mean LED lighting? Does that mean incorporating daylight? So, you know, when we talk about designing a schools, it gets into the nuances of even light and making sure that we deliver to the minimum standards at the most cost-effective way that we can. And just a quick reference from our FDOE facilities SREF training today. I'm very proud to say that we have a lot of our members of our staff there, not just from operations, not just from construction. We have folks from procurement in that training. We have architects, engineers, building inspectors, fire inspectors, all throughout our area participating today. Right here at our district office, we are actually hosting that. And I point that out because that's a cost savings. We typically send our folks out of town to do that training, but we were able to generate an interest and have at least 21 people participate, me included, in that training. So we're doing it here. And it's important for our design partners because they have to retain their certification in engineering and architecture. It helps them get those continuing education credits.
And our cost.
So I transitioned to Bonita Springs High School, and I just want to give you an update of where we are, and I thought it would be very important to have the principal join us because he is actually transitioning into the ownership of this building, and again, it's a very significant event for the district. So currently we're looking at punch list items. Mr. Estes is working on that with our project engineers to ensure that the building is being delivered as promised by the construction manager. We're doing some project closeout tasks, such as the commissioning of systems. Now, just to give you a little bit of background on what that is we have systems such as alarms and HVAC, and they were designed a specific way. And now that the building is fully operational with students and staff, we want to ensure before the warranty period ends that everything's working properly. So that is checking the temperature of the room, making sure the alarms aren't going off. I'm sure Jeff could share some stories about alarms going off because there were some settings in the air conditioning system. All of those things need to be vetted to ensure that we have a product that's it's suitable for our expectations. And then we transition to staff training on the HVAC and lighting systems in the school so that they can assume the ownership of the building. So Jeff's team as well as our maintenance department are being trained in those systems. We do have some final project items that we're working on. I will share just one with you because there were several. If you had went to a Bonita Springs High School football game 2 Thursdays ago, you would have saw a traffic jam. And one of the reasons why is the light was not programmed to be operational after hours. It was set by FDOT to be operational at arrival and dismissal, but not at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night when the crush of fans came to see that inaugural game. So Jeff, Scott, and I have been working with FDOT to make sure the settings are right on that light. So that's an example of project items that we got to iron out. And some of those you don't know until you open the building and you actually realize what's happening. And the next step will be an external audit, and that's when we actually take all the financial records from the project, all the pay apps, all the change orders, everything that you've seen come your way. They will be sent to an external auditor, a CPA, who will certify everything, and will finally close out the project from a financial point of view. And we will certainly bring the report to the board, and we hope we can share that with the public as well to demonstrate our good stewardship of that project. So I just want to let Jeff have a few words in regards to the opening of Bonita Springs High School.
Let's see. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to say that retention rates are high and there are no crucial conversations necessary at this point in time at Bonita Springs High School. Now, things are off to a fantastic start. I want to say thank you to everyone in this room that attended the ribbon cutting ceremony. I thought it went very well. The open house that took place afterwards went equally as well. Something that's been common with this school since day one of opening our doors at the portables is participation rates by the community and our students and our parents. We easily had over 2,000 people there that night for open house. For our first football game in that traffic jam that Mark was referring to, we had over 2,000 people in attendance. Typically, you start one of those games out with a roll of 1,000 tickets, and we had to go back for a second roll of 1,000 tickets. So I don't think I've ever seen that many people at a freshman JV contest ever before. So interest remains high. Throw some data here at you, just kind of give you an idea of what kind of impact we've had as far as employment in the Bonita Springs area, but we now have 68 employees. Student enrollment, we're at 403 freshmen. That's up from 230 the year before. So interest is high from the students. Our small class of 230 has grown to 282. So we're just under 700 students in this short amount of time. We're getting a tremendous amount of requests for kids that want to transfer in, and we have to tell them they've got to wait till March or the student enrollment period. We are also getting requests from Collier County residents just south of the Bonita Beach border wanting to attend the school. A few other points of interest. Our academies are off to a great start. We've got 160 students enrolled in the Aerospace Academy and almost equal number in the Health Professionals Academy. So interest is very high in those. And since being awarded a JROTC program, we are already up to 180 members of the ROTC program with just 688 students. So things are going very well. It's a good time to be a bull shark.
That's right.
Go Bull Sharks. Thank you, Jeff. You know, the great thing about building a prototype school is we have someone sitting right here that can tell us all of the things that we might have missed in the first design and what improvements we can make. So we've gained a lot of knowledge building that school, and we're implementing a lot of things that Jeff has shared with us in MMM. So shifting to MMM, to give you an update, we're currently at about 35 to 40% of design development. And if you remember, that's a phase in the pre-construction phase. Last briefing, we brought you an estimate for Lehigh Senior High School. In this exercise we're going through right now with high school MMM, you can anticipate getting a budget estimate at the October 10th briefing. So a couple of other things that we're doing with this project right now is finalization of the school program and basically forming what those academies are looking like from a facilities perspective, what things that we need to build into the design to accommodate what we're planning to put there. We're knee-deep in planning with the Lee County Emergency Operations Center folks. Items such as generators, hardening of the building structurally, lift station, waste, water management, all of those things that we've learned during Irma and trying to account for it in all of our new shelters. And the great thing is this is a partnership, so there's a financial partnership in all of this as well. So it's a win-win for us. So we're in discussions with them. We'll be finalizing that within the next couple of weeks because some design decisions will need to be made. Technology infrastructure planning, we've been working with Trey's team continuously on looking at how we can put technology in this building in an efficient manner. Learned a lot again on the Bonita Springs High School project and making sure that we do our due diligence in planning that. And lastly, the Army Corps of Engineering permitting progress. As you know, that is one of the biggest aspects of the schedule for this project is when will the Army Corps look at our permit and actually review it? And the great news is they've actually opened up the permit, the application, and reviewed it and have started to share some of the mitigation things that we'll need to take care of. So as we learn more about the things that we need to do mitigate environmentally, we'll include that in the construction budget estimate as well. So that's the high school MMM update. I do want to just talk a little bit about possibly some future topics we can talk about in the briefing in regards to the cost of our facilities. And I know a lot of our presentations have been around hard construction costs, talking about total project costs. But what I'd really like to shift is the mindset in us to start talking about life cycle costs. You know, when you pay for a building, that's a singular cost. But a building costs us over a 50-year period, because that's typically the length of a cycle of a building. So I really like to shift discussion from what is the ROI that we are getting from the buildings that we're building, and how much do they actually cost us over the long term, not just that initial cost. And I think that's going to drive a lot of the decisions design-wise, and when we make these type of investments, make smart ones that will behoove us well into the future. Just wanted to plant that in your mind, and that's something I think our Construction Advisory Committee might be very helpful in thinking with us. So that's the end of our presentation. I'd like to open up questions.
Ms. Patrica.
Just out of curiosity, do transfers from out of county have to wait until the second semester to transfer in, just like our middle and high school kids do? You just mentioned that.
No.
Or can they transfer in at any time?
Well, if somebody just moves into the county, they can, they can.
Go to school.
No, but don't we have school choice where people from outside the county can attend our schools?
If the school has capacity.
Yeah.
So but they do have to wait until second semester too?
No.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And then I just wanted to talk to Principal Estes about the opening game. It was unbelievable. They had to, I don't know if you guys know, they had to move the band out of the, what are those things called?
To the stands.
Thank you. because there were so many people there to watch the game, and it was a freshman JV game. And the colors, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but the colors of Lee Health complement the colors of your school so perfectly.
There's a lot of blue and green.
Yes, so their sponsorship on the buildings just enhances everything you already have going on there. Steve just said it, we so got the right guy there, meaning you. And I think the community is always going to rally around that place. I do think some of the newness and excitement will wear off for everybody except you. I think you will always be excited as into that place as you are right now. So good job.
Thank you.
Ms. Morgan,
Does anybody else have a question?
anyone else?
So the ribbon cutting open house was really an invitation only.
Correct, but thanks to certain media outlets, I won't name them, they opened the doors for everyone. So there were so many people there that were not students and parents, but we made room.
Well, but that begs the question then, because people asked me, and I said you were planning to have a community open house at some point, perhaps in October, November, after all of the, shakedown, everything was done. Is that still?
We have not picked a date, but we still want to do that. Yes, we do.
Because I know there are people in my community and some of the other communities who will be coming back and will want to see.
Same for our community, too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Easily can be done.
all right. I'm going to discuss Bonita High School, and then I have a couple of comments and questions regarding Triple M. Thank you for your leadership and all that you've put in, because your passion, your relationship building shows through and has really assisted with that school. Many people, when they hear Bonita Springs High School, they think of affluence. But the majority of the students that are there are not affluent, and many are our minority students. And it does serve a big need and a big purpose. So I just really do appreciate you being there, and I appreciate all of the community, and I hope all of the community truly embraces all of those students, because many of those students probably are in need of mentors to assist them through the process. So that's a little plug. But I want to thank Mr. Mora and all of your team, because when I buy a car, I don't look at the cost of the car. I look at the return on investment. I look at what it's going to cost me years out for repairs, maintenance, and so on. And then I go ahead, and that's going to let me know what's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck. And so, yes, that's how we have to look at things. That's how we have to plan. And I appreciate how not only the process has improved regarding new construction, but that we have also improving the way that we look at and plan for things for down the road. Because in the end, we are smarter with our money, and we are showing that we're more wise stewards of what our taxpayers are entrusting us to do. So I want to thank you for that, but I have a question. In 2014, 2015, board members at that time were asked to provide input and provide names of people that would be community members who would be part of the discussion regarding programs and what would happen at both schools at that time, not knowing which way we would go. As you mentioned academic programs and so on, I'm sitting here thinking, how many people from all of that eastern area are providing input of what they believe are the needs? I have a real concern about that.
And I would basically want to defer that to the folks that do that academic planning. I know that when we did a task force that was, I believe, hosted by the foundation, we actually did bring community members to talk about the programming for both those schools, and we did an assessment of workforce needs at the time, and did get input from the community. And I believe that report is out there still, that it might be on the planning department's website, which will be transitioning to facilities. But this might be an opportunity for us to bring in the folks in our district that are more responsible for that area. I do know that Rita Davis, in the formation of the academies, engages with the workforce, works with the businesses, and she's done a really great job of engaging with them, obviously with the development of the academies at Bonita Springs High School. So I suspect the same things are going on with the academy development there.
Well, and I also believe we need to incorporate, if there's a way we can incorporate families and students, because conversations that occurred in 14-15 are not going to be the same conversations that are happening now in 18-19, and knowing that the school's not going to open for another couple of years. It has to be very forward-thinking and looking at what's happening within that area to fully engage our students. So, Dr. Atkins, someone, I'm really asking for that, because I really believe that's an important part. There are many people that I care for and I represent who don't feel like they are engaged in the process, and I want to make sure that they are. So
it makes great sense. We've engaged with the community in regards to the design of the school, mitigating their concerns with traffic and lighting and sound. It does make good sense that you parallel that with the development of the programs as well.
Okay. Thank you. And I just, again, kudos to all of you. And did the two of you plan your colors?
Actually, we didn't.
I just have one question.
Yes, question.
So your question, or what you just said, made me think about something. So will the MMM be, will we only have the first two, 9th grade and 10th grade, or will we fill the school? I mean, I don't know what we did at Mariner. Did we fill that school when it opened?
That's a great question. Right now, we're at least planning to stage the freshman class, obviously, at a portable campus at Lehigh Senior High School. But when we start looking at the numbers and we get closer to that, and I'm assuming that the planning department will look at some cycle 2 data, and start looking at projections for that year we plan to open it, and there might be a need to open the full school population. So it all depends on what the numbers are showing at that particular time.
Okay.
Yeah, and that,
I'm sorry, did we do that in Mariner? Because I didn't know.
I can't recall if we did that at Mariner. Island Coast we did.
We did.
Island Coast was staged at a portable campus on the, what we called it, portables on the green, I think is what they referred to it as.
yes, and we did do that same procedure with East Lee. And I know that parents and people in the community,
That's what I was trying to figure out.
as we look at students and students are moving into other schools, I think we need to know indication of those. We need to be forward-thinking enough so that our students, our families, and others know what will be provided for my 11th grader if I decide to transfer out of Riverdale, transfer out of Lehigh Senior, so that it encourages students and families to pick that and choose to change from one high school to another, especially when you're talking senior year.
And maybe Mr. Estes can share some of the challenges that might be inherent in trying to open up a full school and the staffing and the offering of programs. Definitely not my forte.
Excuse me. I imagine the numbers will dictate the decision and capacities. We were fortunate enough to look at capacity in 11th and 12th grade in the South Zone when we made that decision, because there are reasons to do both types of openings. So I think the data and the dollars will drive that decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And public comment. Mr. Dodig, would you please read the directives regarding public comment at this time?
Our school board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting for members of the public to address the board concerning any matter on this briefing meeting's agenda. The subject of comment is limited to those items on the agenda. Time permitted is 3 minutes per speaker. I have no cards.
All right, I'm going to ask, are there any other members today that have comments they would like to make regarding today's briefing? Would you do me a favor for the secretary? Would you please state your full name?
No, come on up.
Come on up. And Ms. Gittens, I know fully well who you are. We just have a wonderful person.
I'm not Ms. Ware, right? Well, good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to make a comment on when Ms. Pruitt was talking about the training for administrators, and kind of twofold. One part is the older teachers, like Ms. Patrica mentioned. This is not a campaign button. It says I remember.
I see it.
Okay. Ms. Patrica mentioned about the 50 and older teachers that were looking to leave or to get into drop. And a part of it is there are a lot of programs and initiatives for, like the FGCU program, and for teachers coming in. And I guess my question is about the older teachers, the more seasoned teachers. What types of things are we doing for them? And also in that vein, the training that she talked about for the administrators and the process that they go through in order to manage people. Sometimes we end up in like a Peter Principle situation with administrators, that they, are good at this level and they continue to rise, and they're not necessarily good. They're good at managing children and not necessarily understanding how to manage adults. So the question would be, have you thought about putting some of that training in the pool training? So initially, as these people are going through their training to see if they're even qualified or whatever to go into administration, to deal with adults and not children, if they have those skills. When I used to work for Bank of America, we did those types of trainings and assessments prior to making someone a manager and administrator, to kind of see if they fit into that or if they're better where they're at. Also, I just want to say some of the programs that I'm hearing are very good, and especially the FGCU one, to help train people as they come in to know what they're getting into. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Last call. Anyone else? Okay. Board comments. How about, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Morgan.
That's fine, and I have none.
I have none.
Mr. Teuber.
None.
Ms. Patrica.
None.
Ms. Fisher.
Okay, today is 9/11, so I wanted to repeat a quote from President Barack Obama. Even the smallest act of service, the simplest act of kindness, is a way to honor those we lost and a way to reclaim that spirit of unity that followed 9/11. On August 30th, I attended the Coalition for a Drug-Free Southwest Florida annual meeting. Their efforts in positive prevention community-wide, their collaboration with schools, law enforcement, and community agencies is actually immeasurable. They provide a lot of programs both on and off campuses to support our kids. I do want to mention that as we lost 3,000 people in 9/11, daily in this country, we lose 3,000 people to opioid addiction. So I think that we need to really continue to support the Drug-Free Coalition and their efforts in this community. On a happy note, I visited a couple of schools, and I just wanted to say that I was so uplifted by the students being actively engaged, supported and empowered by their teachers and their administrators. So I guess I definitely started out with the right schools, and I hope to visit many more the rest of this year. And I want to thank all of our district people and our school people and our kids for the work that they're doing to make this district noteworthy. One other mention was that, speaking of community partnerships, I saw in the newspaper today that the program for the AEDs, which were donated by the Lee Health Foundation to all of our schools, potentially life-saving, and did save the life of Zach Ziska, who's now a student at Fort Myers High School, and he is working with Lee Health to train people on how to use those and to keep all of our kids safe on the sports field. So I thank them for that also. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Can I ask Mary a question?
Yes.
Did you say we have as many deaths every day due to opioids alone, as we did on
Opioid
9/11?
addiction, 3,000.
So that's not all drugs and
nationally.
alcohol, that's just opioids.
Just opioids.
That's crazy.
That's a statistic that I read at the annual meeting, actually.
Scary. It is scary.
Very scary. I too have had some wonderful experiences at our schools. Our students are fully engaged, and I'm amazed at what our teachers and staff are doing to reach those students. And I'm hearing people that are hearing from teachers and others who, while there's always frustration at the beginning with making some adjustments with regards, whether it be lesson plans, whatever, but to see how they are getting more comfortable and they're learning to work together as teams to help each other. That team building mindset went away for a while, a few years ago, and I believe we're seeing that collaborative piece come into play. It's interesting, Ms. Fisher, as you mentioned and talked about the opioid addiction and the deaths. And this week I had the opportunity to go to the Regional Human Trafficking Coalition meeting, and Evelyn Donovan from Ave Maria Law Department was there speaking, and she talked about what we have, what comes into play for students who are here, not on their own free will, but have been trafficked here, and the process that we as a country do. And she said, we, the United States, do the best job of assisting our victims of trafficking with transitioning into the country, especially if they have fear of going back to where they were. And so that I wanted to get that out there and let people know that we are trying our best to work with people that are having difficulties. And with suicide, I met with a mom who is willing to honor her son, who just took his life 3 months ago, and really wants to work with our students, teachers. She wants to do what she can to assist people in serving students and identifying those students to helping them along the way. And so I want to say kudos to some staff members that she has already talked with. Kudos to Debbie Diggs at North Fort Myers High for the way she has worked with this mom and the family. And kudos to Lori Brooks, who is having that conversation and part of it, because that is part of our whole mental health capacity we're trying to bring forward. And so it's great to meet and talk with people and help them make connections with our district so that we can better serve our students. I truly believe everyone that you encounter along the way, board members, is another person that we will find a connection to assisting our students moving forward. And just since Saturday, I've had 5 different things happen that can connect with. So look for those opportunities, because that's what we're here for. We're here to advocate for our kids, and let's look for those. And I'm sorry that this is becoming a challenge thing, but right now I'm feeling very passionate about that. And I just thank you for being the wonderful team that you are, because you each bring amazing gifts and talents to the board, and thank you. I can't say that tonight. I do need to go to I'm going back to the agenda. Dr. Atkins, do you have any comments?
I think I'm supposed to be first, so
Okay, well,
save the best for last. So.
all right. I will
I'll just
save the best for
acknowledge,
last.
I want to thank Ms. Fisher for acknowledging September 11th. I think as a native New Yorker who was not far away that day, it's important we not forget how America changed that day. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Atkins.
I want to give you a couple of, a few quick academic highlights, and then I want to put it into context. And the context is something that we rarely discuss and report on. We all know, and we've talked a lot about our graduation rate, the highest that we've ever seen. We've also talked quite a bit about the reduction of DA schools from 23 DA schools down to just 1 this year, and that 1 school is only really literally 3 points away from a C. In math, we saw a 10% increase in geometry, which is a rate of increase better than the state, and algebra was up 3%. We saw a 10% increase in mathematics in 7th grade and 6% up in 8th grade, which again is better than the state, and we saw increased rigor at the middle school level in mathematics. 5% increase in biology, again a better increase than what we saw as a state, and U.S. history, 3% increase this year, better than the state. And of course reading was up in 5, 8, 9, and 10, and no significant drops. And that is implementing a new reading program which came in very late in the summer, and without the curriculum maps and the academic programs that you see in place this year. We had a 4% increase in our AP pass rate and a 20% increase in industry certifications, which is a new record at 5,108. Oh. So now, to put that into context, we have incredible mobility in the school district. So just to give you a little bit looking at that, and this is, I've asked Dr. Itzen to look at 16-17 data and then look at 17-18 data. I'll just do 17-18 because it's pretty much the same. So with approximately 9,717 students coming in, new kindergartners at 5,185, this is 17-18 school year, we had 4,532 new students other than kindergarten that started the year, and then 6,876 students that came in during the course of the year, for 11,408 students other than kindergartners that were coming into our school district. 11,408 students other than kindergartners, new kindergartners, that came into our school district. At the same time, we had 3,100 students that had been enrolled in our district the previous year that did not show up at the beginning of the year. And then we had another 7,988 students withdraw during the course of the year, so you have 11,088 students that left the school district. So 11,000 new, 11,000 leaving. And then, of course, you had the growth at the kindergarten level. So what we're talking about is over 22,000 students changing over the course of just last school year. Then you look at data in terms of our student performance from those students who are new to our school district compared to students that are with us over a number of years. And almost without exception, the longer you're with our district, the better you perform. To the point, if you look at ELA, a student that has been with this district for 5 or more years almost doubles the performance of a student who is a 10th grader new to the district. So a 10th grader that's been with us doubles the proficiency on average of a 10th grader that is new to our district, a student from somewhere else. And if you look at 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, it usually ratchets up. And there are some exceptions, but the point is that unlike many districts in the state of Florida and across this nation, our school district has incredible mobility and growth. As you know, we're one of 6 growing school districts in the state of Florida at 1,500 to 2,000 students a year, 800 last year with the hurricane. But every year we see not only that degree of growth, it's not really just 1,500 students, new students. We're talking about 20,000, 22,000, transitions that are taking place across the district. Yet despite that, we have the academic performance that we see, but we also need to understand that if we have students here for many years, they typically do much, much better. So I just share that with you because that's part of the story that doesn't often get told that I think that we should share more.
So if I'm correct, parents, when you want to move to Florida, the sooner we get your children, the better off you're going to be. So if it's time to move, it's time to move now.
Right, that's exactly right.
And stay where you moved to.
Stay there,
Before
yes.
November 6th and before registration for new voting ends.
And those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to adjourn, and we will see everyone back here at 5 o'clock? 5:05 for our special meeting on the budget.
Because we have to statutorily be